Action.
Excellent. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I don't care where you're from. Happy for you to join on the virtual event number 11, as far as I know, Sean. Woohoo!
Indeed, mate, indeed.
Yeah,
He's
excellent.
correct.
My name is Boaz Fischer, and we have
Sean Ofir.
Ofir
a
Cohen.
special guest, Ofir Cohen from Thales. So today's topic is very pertinent to the subject of where we are, about why organizations fail to judge employee access correctly and raise the probability of a data breach. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of all of that, Ofir, tell me a little bit about you. I know that you had the identity access management for Thales, but give me a little bit of your background and why Thales.
All right. Thanks, Boaz. So yeah, I actually moved to Australia just 1 year ago after spending so many years, mainly in the defense and security sphere. I worked both in Israel in the cybersecurity, and I worked and lived 4 years in India, in New Delhi, leading a lot of defense and cybersecurity government national projects. And then I decided to move down under and move to beautiful Australia and beautiful Sydney just a year ago. And today I'm leading the IAM portfolio, identity and access management, cybersecurity solutions for Thales. And happy to be there.
Beautiful, beautiful. So before we start asking lots of questions, which we love to do, I'll get Sean to set the scene.
Yeah, so good morning, evening, afternoon to everybody. So today session is all about a very simple statement. If there is no access, there is no business. And so every organization must grant its employees with the third-party access or third-party access to their data and infrastructure in order to operate the business. But that access is a privilege to do what they are tasked to do and not just what they can do. The challenge these days with the remote employment of remote workers is that organizations provide access, but they don't really know or how they can verify that their employees do what they should do. And also, what about the remote third parties that they access to organization infrastructure? Why a simple user and login is not enough? Why that became a challenge, and what organizations do today to make sure that they can protect their crown jewels? And another question, what about people that shift roles? People that have privilege to do certain role or operate a certain systems, but when they shift roles, when they switch roles, in many organizations, they don't really pay attention to the privilege entitlements. They just take their privileges with them, sometimes when it's not really relevant. So the question is today, which Ofir will help us to understand how organization manage those privilege, how organization manage the right access and the access rights to the company infrastructure and IP.
Excellent, beautiful. So before we dive into further details, let's set an understanding, a baseline. Ofir, what does identity access management really mean in sort of an industry context?
Yeah, so identity and access management is actually kind of perception, kind of an idea and a method, basically, on for a company on to kind of summarize or put in one place the ability and to have the ability to allow from one hand in one hand all of their employees, subcontractors, anyone that actually works in the company to log in to the company, environments, cloud services, whatever they need securely. And on the other hand, not disturbing their usual day-to-day job, because we want to authenticate them, we want to secure the login, we want to be able to monitor the actual login and authentication that they do. But on the other hand, we don't want to make their life difficult, because if you put so many barriers and firewalls and authentications methods and everything, eventually the user and your client, and basically the clients are your employees. You want them to keep on working. You don't want to make their life miserable. You don't want to get them to work too much in just to log in. So when you're allowing them to do it easily, you're making their life easy, and you allow them them to work easily. So, but on the other hand, and in the same time, you still have control on that. So identity and access management, basically a good system, will actually allow you to do all of these. I mean, in one hand, authenticate and secure the authentication of employees, and on the other hand, allow the employees to do it easily and swiftly without even noticing they're actually doing something actively.
Good. So what are the current trends that you're seeing today? And let me add another small question to top of it. What do you see the trends going to be in 2021?
All right. So basically, I mean, what we've experienced in the past year was like a tremendous shift in this sphere, because if in 2019 and before that, you had only about 15% more or less employees working completely remotely, like sales guys and stuff like that, and people like that. And usually, occasionally, people went on vacation and wanted to work remotely. Now we're facing almost 80% or even more trying to work remotely. And that completely changed the understanding and the way we work. So that forced that situation actually forced companies to think differently. So if until a couple of months ago we relied on our VPNs or just a username and password to those remote couple of employees, now it's not enough, because people are working from home from their private laptops or even from their work laptop all the time, using the same, unfortunately, username and password that they're using to log into their Facebook, any social media. And that's a huge risk. That's a huge threat. And we saw, and everybody sees, I think, I mean, everybody looks in the news and we see all those kind of phishing and hacking attacks, endless amount of attacks. And so companies just started to realize that they need to put and establish higher level of security. And but that made a lot of employees' life a bit harder, because suddenly companies forced them to use so many authentication methods like tokens and endless amount of passwords. And now employees are starting to push back. They want an easy task, an easy method. And I think what we'll see in 2021 will be like a balance between a higher authentication level and the ease of use. And that's what all the companies, the OEMs that makes those kind of systems, identity and access management systems, and on the other hand, the buyers, the clients that want to buy and to purchase the best of breed, but on the other hand, not to make our life so difficult. So I think in 2021 we'll start to see the balance of those two.
Now,
okay, so yes, thanks for interrupting, but go ahead.
No worries. No, look, I just have a very interesting question. Today, when obviously a lot of people, if it was before the Russia was 90% working in the office, 10% work from home or remotely. I think now it's almost the opposite. When they need to visit their offices in capsules or in groups, while the majority are at home. Now, when people are working from home using their well, I guess not everybody, but most of them are using their own private infrastructure and their home Wi-Fi, home internet. There is not a lot of security, and they're accessing their work using the same infrastructure they're using for their own private actions. Now, obviously, they have other systems installed and they access private systems or their individual systems that they own. With their access to their private systems, private emails, private services, there is a high chance of identity theft. So what happened when the identity been stolen and those hackers, those criminals are trying to log in and try to take advantage of the data they stole from the user and try to log into yours or to the corporate systems. Maybe I'm talking about targeted people, the executives that not always they are really IT and security savvy. How does it work? How does that protect that problem?
Yeah, so exactly, that's exactly the scenario and the use case that basically any kind of a good, reliable identity and access management system, sorry, is supposed to deal with, because that's exactly the hackers' point or way to go in. Once they steal your credentials, or they still, I mean, it's not all the time it's only the username and password, because sometimes you're using what we call 2FA, two-factor authentication.
Correct.
Sometimes that can be those credentials can also be hacked. So you need to put a different layer or additional layers of authentication, of securing your access and securing your credentials. You can use a couple of ways of encryption, symmetric or asymmetric encryption to all of your credentials. So there are a lot of ways of securing and protecting those credentials. On top of that, in order to secure or to raise the level of security to the company environments, you need to be able, a company needs to understand that they can actually define several environments that are high vulnerability and also at high risk and high value to the company. Because for example, the HR or the finance environments are probably one of the most important environments for a company, or the R&D, where kind of logs or expenses, user expenses, are less important, because if you hack them, it won't make such effect to the company. So you need to be able to protect those specific environments and not just put a broad protection on the entire company. That makes, again, the authentication method and working very difficult. So you need to be able to differentiate the layers and the levels of securing and authenticating the users to the system. So we need to be able to investigate and redesign the way we see how the employees are working, how the system, how the IT manager, the solution architects are designing the network. And like you said, when users are working from home and using their own private Wi-Fi, unsecured Wi-Fi, and then even if they're trying to log into the VPN credentials are pretty much easy to hack. Like you said, hackers can easily hack the Gmail and any social media and steal the credentials. So that's exactly where an IAM solution comes in place, protecting and securing those credentials and preventing hackers to steal and use. They can maybe steal half of them, but they will never be able to use them unless they have the other parts of the credentials in order to log in.
Excellent. Ofir, so we hear a lot of the news because of the risks that we see and the amount of hacking and credential theft and so forth. So there's a lot of banter in the industry called zero trust. Sean and myself talk a lot about from a trust from a human context, but the industry sees it from a system, which means that its relationship with anyone else from a system context, this should be zero trust. I've heard trust no one as also as a standard system. Explain it from your context. What does zero trust and how that correlates with identity access management?
Yeah, so zero trust is basically the way of thinking. It's a way of thinking for, especially obviously the company. In one hand, and we talk about it. I mean, SABASAI is expert in the inside threats. So also, I mean, zero trust. You don't want to trust your employee not to do damage, because in one hand there are employees that intentionally wants to damage the company, and on the other hand you have employees that unintentionally damage the company's assets. So you don't want to trust them. You don't want to trust their level of integrity, or you don't want to trust their level of professionalism. You just want to have your company work smoothly. You want to use and you want your employees to work as much as in a higher level of professionalism and use and utilize their skills to the best. But on the other hand, you want to keep your company safe. So when your employees actually are trying to start working, you need to have a zero trust in their ability to authenticate themselves. You don't want to trust them to keep their credentials safe. You don't want to trust them that they will change every 3 months their password. You don't want to trust them to keep a note on a paper the password, because they don't want anybody to hack. So zero trust is actually a way of thinking, a way of kind of a methodology to say, okay, guys, we trust you to do your job in the best way you can. But on the other and in the same time, we don't trust you to keep your credentials safe. We do the job. You don't need to worry about it. I mean, we as a company worry enough, so we do the job for you.
Yeah, look, I think that's the trend anyway in the industry. Organizations, they are taking more and more accountability and controls and responsibility into the organization. So, for example, look at the virtualization today. Instead of having users working with their desktop, organizations said, look, you will use a dumb terminal. Well, it's basically coming back 40, 50 years ago. You will use a dumb terminal. We will make sure that you get the operating system. We will make sure that you get all the tools that you need to work. We will maintain them. We will secure them. I think when organization needs to secure its assets and its crown jewels, it's not the job of the employees. They need to be aware, but the responsibility, it's always about the organization, and the business needs to take care of itself. So you can't send, look, this is a war zone. The cyber world is a war zone, and there are always constant attacks and constant bombings and constant casualties. You can't expect employees that they are not qualified as cyber soldiers to go in battle. to go to the battle. They don't have the right tools. So the responsibility and the accountability lies at the business side. There should be awareness programs and trainings and education so employees can help, but you can't expect employees to take care of the security. You don't ask employees to bring their own lock to the office. You provide the lock. You provide the keys.
Exactly.
You provide the security. You ask them to use it properly. So I guess the whole idea is to make sure that the organization grant users and the employees and the third parties with the privilege, the access rights to access to what they need to do, what they should do, what they are tasked to do. The responsibility on the user or third party side is not to misuse those privileges, but that need to be verified and judged by the business. It's always about the business.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's
Correct.
that's exactly way companies need to work and start change the way of thinking of not trusting fully their employees to use and to think about how they secure their business. The employee needs to focus on doing their job in the best way they can.
Yeah, what we don't want is we don't want to go completely to the other side as well. So what we don't want to get this situation where an employee says, well, I don't have the security tools, so therefore I'm not going to even care how I behave online because I've got a security team. They can handle all my mistakes. So there's got to be a balance as such. So what's next in the identity access management there, Ofir?
So we see a lot of movement today when a lot of companies in the past years usually use a lot of tokens. Mainly we see it in banks, government, big organizations that they deploy the employees with either a USB token or they utilize their employee badge to use as a authentication token. So we see a lot of shiftment between using what we call the plastic into a virtual tokens. We have a new trend in the identity and access management, which called the virtual token. It's a private, secured CBA token that you can use to authenticate yourself the same way as a plastic one. The beauty of it is that it never gets lost, and the price of a plastic token is a significant amount when you have about between 10%, 10 to 12% loss cases in a company over a year. So that, I mean, adding up. So you don't have to worry about it, and you can use those virtual tokens to so many applications. I mean, you can use it as a PKI to sign documents, securely signed documents. You don't need to worry about it. I mean, the world is going to a paperless environment, and especially now that we're working from home, you can't just transfer and ship documents. You need to sign them and you need to authenticate them. And so you can use those virtual tokens in so many cases. So that's basically a new trend. The other one is the FIDO tokens. A lot of companies are now going into the FIDO sphere, like a generic token that you can buy anywhere. Every big company makes their own FIDO tokens these days, and you can utilize those FIDO tokens to basically signature and authenticate yourself to any environment or any document, or use it as a general PKI. So we see a lot of movement there. On top of that, we have a lot of companies, big companies that understand the need and the use to move to cloud. Many companies, obviously until about a year and a half ago, worked completely on-prem. All their environment, everything was on-prem. Now everything is shifting to the cloud. It doesn't matter any cloud, it doesn't matter which cloud, but everyone is shifting their on-prem environments to the cloud services. And that, again, that's add up a huge risk, because the cloud is basically a web page. That's it. That can easily be hacked. And you need to be able to protect all of those cloud environments with one single tool, because you don't want to allow your employees or you don't want your employees to need to use a different login, a different credentials to any cloud application, because they will never choose different passwords. Obviously, they choose the same password to all of their cloud applications. And that obviously a huge, tremendous risk.
Tell me something, Ofir. If there is an organization today that think of an additional or more sophisticated access management and identity management project, how long it takes to start such a project, to plan it, to implement such a project? How hard it is?
Yeah, so an identity and IAM project is in one hand is not an easy task, but on the other hand, implementation can be super easy. And I mean, basically the first step, like everything else, is planning. You need to do the planning. You need to understand your environment, and we can help. I mean, everybody. We can help any company understand their current environment. We can investigate together with them, together with you, their current environment, because big companies usually do a lot of patches. They find a hole in one area, they protect it, they seal it, and then they move on. Sometimes there are a lot of overlaps and a waste of money. We can help reducing those costs, analyzing. So basically, the first step is analyzing your current environment, understanding where are the pain points, where are the loopholes that you need to seal. And then you need to understand how you can seal it in the best possible way, cost effective. Obviously, you don't want to spend too much money on anything. Companies, especially in these days, want to reduce costs, and we can help with that. And then comes obviously the implementation. Implementation of IAM solution can vary. And now I must mention the Thales IAM solution, even though we're not talking about solutions and products. But yes, Thales IAM solution can be implemented in a matter of hours, where usually a big IAM solution is implementing between 3 weeks to 6 weeks. Thales IAM solution can be implemented in a matter of hours, and the entire company is secured. If you want to tweak all of the system, it won't take you more than a couple of days, and the entire company will 100% be secure. So IAM solution, implementing an IAM solution needs to be thoroughly considered. We need to understand the risks and threats that the company is currently facing, and we need to understand by implementing kind of a simple solution like an IAM system can easily protect the entire company from basically, I won't say 100%, but 99% of hacking attacks.
Yep.
Ofir, I was going to add an extension to what Sean just asked, which is, so if an organization has got identity access management, how could it help monitor privilege creep? So basically, users or employees who change roles, move to a different position within an organization, and they are given additional privileges, but those previous privileges that they had haven't been revoked. So how can a traditional IAM provide that management or monitoring that can mitigate that privilege creep?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of the management part in the IAM definition. So a good and a reliable IAM system will be able to give you and will be able to give basically the IT manager that control the roles, shiftment, and recruiting and releasing employees, the ease of use. I mean, a good an IAM solution will be able to give him in a click of a mouse the ability to change roles, and by doing so, and by enabling the IT manager to do so, it actually transform or shift the credentials and the security, and implementing basically the new authentication methods, or security aspects, or credential or privileged credentials from one role to the other one. And you don't need to select Joe as an employee and then start to remove the ticks of the environments that he once had the ability to log in, and then put the ticks on the new ones. No, you don't need to do that. By basically drag and drop, you put him in the new group, let's say, and automatically everything is shifted. You don't need to remember what he had and what he needs to have. It just automatically does it by simple drag and drop. And that's basically a life cycle of the entire authentication and security, and even data protection of a life cycle of an employee. Because we need to understand that an employee is an asset to the company. He holds information from day one that he signed in until the last day that he retired. He holds a lot of information. He deals with a lot of information. He sees. He needs to protect the information and the work that he's doing for the company. And we need to protect his access to the company's environment. So it's a whole life cycle that we need to be able to monitor.
Good. So look, I want to come to a conclusion there. So what I'll do is I'll ask Sean a question, which is, what is the number one key takeaway that you see from the conversation that we've had so far?
Well, in the past, we used to think that one person equal one user. And people used to come to work, come to the office, switch on the IBM or the the VAX terminal, and they were working. And when they were leaving the work, they would just shut down or put it to sleep and walk back home, and the work would stay there. Today, one person gets maybe 10 or 20 different users. They have a lot of access to a lot of. They have multiple identities, and in order to manage that, we need to have a different approach. Organization needs to protect their IP. They need to protect their business. If you can't really match between people and the users and their avatars or their virtual identity, then there will be a chaos. So new problems requires new approaches and new controls to make sure that whoever is authorized to access is that actual person, and they do what they are tasked to do. And while freedom is given to encourage productivity, creativity, it still needs to be there need to have boundaries, and those boundaries must be controlled, and the responsibility and accountability is on the business side. That's what I understand.
Yes. Ofir, what is the number one takeaway that people watching this video should harness?
People need to understand that and the company needs to understand that we're living in a different environment. We need to be able to, on one hand, trust our employees, allowing them to do the job that they are tasked to do. But on the other hand, we need to protect ourselves. I mean, especially these days, we need to protect. Protection and security is a very crucial thing, and we need to protect ourselves in any way possible. Me and Chayo are training in martial arts. We know how to protect ourselves. We zero trust anyone that tried to approach us. That's the way. We need to protect our assets. Our assets is our families, and that's the way the company needs to understand. The company is a family. The company needs to be able to protect itself, and on the same time needs to be able to keep on moving forward all the time.
Good metaphor.
You're right, Ofir, you're right.
Sifu. Quick one, Ofir. So, anyone watching this, how can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
Best way is to simply log into Thales website, CPL Thales. Look for the cloud protection and licensing department. We are, I'm part of Thales DIS, Digital Identity and Security Division. Obviously, the best way is to just ping me, and we can publish my email address and phone number, and you're more than welcome to ping me, chat, email, drop me an email, and I'll be happy and more than happy to assist and reply back with any kind of information regarding identity and access management, cloud protection, cybersecurity assistance. More than happy to help.
Okay, excellent. Well, there you have it. Sean, any last comments?
Good. That video will be uploaded as usual to our YouTube channel and also our website. Please subscribe to our channel, follow our activities. We have a lot of goods to offer and many surprises in the near future.
I was going to say something. This is a question for you guys who are watching it. If you've got a specific topic that you want Sean and myself to talk about, reach out to us, because we've got a lot of ideas, but we sometimes want to talk about what you want us to talk about. So let us know. That's a good way. Okay, Sean, I'm going to wish you a morning, an afternoon, and an evening. And thanks again, Ofir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure chatting with you, and that's great. And we hope to see you soon next time.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for hosting me.